charges, I must acknowledge the hard work, the extensive work, the complex work, and collaboration of the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, who was just integral to our work on this case. And we worked with wonderful prosecutors from Prosecutor McDonald's office, the Troy Police Department, who worked with us as well, of course, my office, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, the Michigan State Police, and I want to give a special shout out to their intelligence analysts who did incredible work, timeless work, and the Detroit Police Department and its homicide task force, with also a special shout out to their intelligence analysts who worked and did incredible work on this case. I want to also thank Sheriff Bouchard for his professionalism and for his patience, because I'm sure 4 months was very difficult to wait for, but we wanted to do this right, and I really thank him. Oh, he's over here. Thank him for his patience and professionalism. An extensive amount of evidence was looked at in this case that includes, but certainly is not limited to, an extensive amount of social media pages, as you can probably imagine, body-worn camera and its footage, many phone extractions, cell phone tower records, video and surveillance records, and police reports from no less than 12 different jurisdictions. Many search warrants were executed, ring door camera video was sought and used, and of course forensic evidence, which will be talked about during the trial or any proceedings in this case beyond today. Today we have charged, and actually last night we charged, Ramon Rayleigh DeBose, 18 of Clinton Township, Marquise Lamar Gaines, 18 of Detroit, and finally Kareem Blake Moore, also 18 of Clinton Township. We have charged them in connection with the June 22nd, 2024 homicide of Bradley Reckling. He was 30 years old. Deputy Reckling was an Oakland County Sheriff deputy who was killed in the line in Detroit while working on an auto theft task force. By all accounts, Deputy Reckling was a family man and a very valued part of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. And Sheriff Bouchard will be talking about him a little bit more later. As I said, June 22nd, 2004, at approximately 10:48 p.m., Deputy Reckling was operating as an undercover and investigating a stolen SUV around Park Grove in Schwerner in Detroit. He saw the stolen vehicle that he was seeking, and it's alleged that defendant DeBose fired a handgun from it, fatally striking Deputy Reckling. Medics arrived at the scene and transported Deputy Reckling to the hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries. We are also alleging that these defendants, Moore and Goins, were in the vehicle with DeBose at the time of the shooting and fled with him and supported him afterwards. They are alleged to be accessories after the fact to DeBose. The evidence of this case will also show that Deputy Reckling became aware of an auto theft ring in November of 2023. He continued investigating crimes associated with that ring up to the day that he was fatally shot. More complete facts and evidence will be placed on the record in the court of law in future dates. This continues to be, and I want to repeat this continues to be an ongoing investigation, and there's potential for more arrests and charges, but not on the murder, on the criminal enterprise that I'll describe in a minute. While we were investigating the homicide of Deputy Reckling, the investigation revealed the alleged continuing criminal enterprise. These crimes within that enterprise occurred in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, and as a result, this case has been charged as a continuing criminal enterprise. It is alleged that this criminal enterprise ran between November of 2023 through June 22nd of 2024, as I said before, culminating in the murder of Deputy Reckling. The scope of the enterprise is breathtaking, and it also includes at least 4 carjackings, the theft of 4 more motor vehicles, at least, 8 counts of weapon charges being carried in all of these vehicles, and these charges against the defendant are the following. Charges for defendant Ramon Rayleigh DeBose, 18 years old, murder of a peace officer, maximum penalty life in prison without the possibility of parole, or a minimum sentence of 25 to 40 years and a maximum sentence of 60 years. Receiving and concealing stolen property, a motor vehicle, maximum penalty 5 years. He's further being charged with 4 counts of carrying a concealed weapon, maximum penalty 5 years. 3 counts of felony firearm, and as you probably know, that is a maximum penalty of 2 years that must be served consecutively to any other charges that he might be convicted of. Carjacking, maximum penalty life in prison, and conducting a criminal enterprise, maximum penalty 20 years. That's on defendant DeBose. In the carjacking count, defendant DeBose will be waived as an adult, He was 17 years old at the time of the carjacking. He since turned 18 prior to the murder of Deputy Reckling. It's important to remember that Defendant DuBose is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. Charges for defendant number 2, Marquise Lamar Goins, 18 years old, accessory after the fact to the felony. The felony, of course, being murder of a police officer, 5 years in prison for the accessory after the fact. Receiving and concealing stolen property or motor vehicle, maximum penalty 5 years. 4 counts of carrying a concealed weapon, maximum penalty 5 years. 3 counts of felony firearm, which must be served 2 years, that must be served consecutive to any other charge that he might be convicted of. And carjacking, just like Mr. DuBose, maximum penalty life in prison. Also, conducting a criminal enterprise, maximum penalty 20 years. And in the carjacking count, like Mr. DuBose, he was 17 years old at the time the carjacking occurred, but he would be waived as an adult, and he was 18 at the time Deputy Reckling was killed. Again, it's important to remember, and I can't say this enough, that Mr. Goins is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And finally, the charges on Kareem Blake Moore, 18 years old, accessory after the fact to a felony, maximum penalty 5 years, receiving, concealing stolen property, maximum penalty 5 years, 4 counts of carrying a concealed weapon, maximum penalty 5 years, 2 counts of felony firearm, and 1 count of conducting a criminal enterprise, maximum penalty 20 years. It's important to remember, of course, that Defendant Moore is also presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. This case will be prosecuted by Assistant Prosecutors Rana Hadid and Matt Penny, who have worked tirelessly on this case for 4 months, almost on an everyday basis in collaboration from the partners that I mentioned earlier. They are certainly members of Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Public Integrity Unit. These defendants are expected to be arraigned tomorrow morning. We think around 10 o'clock, but we don't have an exact time. We also don't know who the magistrate will be, but we will send you that information under separate cover. And that arraignment will take place in the 36th District Court. So, Chief White, if you want to say a few words.
Thank you, Prosecutor Worthy. Thank you all for being here today. This was a very, very difficult case, and I could not be more thankful to the prosecutor's office, specifically the prosecutor, Madam Prosecutor, and all the work that has gone into this case. Also, the Public Integrity Unit, Prosecutor Hadid, and certainly Prosecutor Penny, the work that they put in, the countless hours of sitting down with our staff and our team, our OICs, and working on this case, the updates that they provided to myself, that I was able to provide to Sheriff Bouchard, the countless meetings that we have had and updates. I could not be more proud of our team and more thankful of the collaboration. Thank you to the hardworking men and women of the Detroit Police Department. I want to also highlight the work of Lieutenant Matthew Bray and Jamari McIntyre that worked on this case as the OICs. Been a very difficult year for DPD in a variety of different ways. The cases keep coming, but this case was extremely complex. I want to also thank the Michigan State Police for their work and assistance with us on this case. As I indicated, very challenging. Our homicide task force spent countless hours reviewing evidence, as the prosecutors already indicated, body camera video, all other video assets that we were able to pull together, and just the work and the team coming together has been incredible. Deputy Reckling was a hero. He was an absolute hero, and he did what we all love doing, and that is keeping our respective communities safe. He came to work like we all do any day of the week. He laid his life on the line. He was in our city pursuing someone for auto theft, stumbled onto something much bigger than he even thought, which will be revealed later, and made the ultimate sacrifice. I've talked to my partner, Sheriff Bouchard, many times. Oakland County Sheriff's Department has had a very, very difficult year. And as you can imagine, the Sheriff's Department is reeling, much like DPD. This one touches close to home. This is an officer who made a sacrifice in our city and was lost. A family man, a hero, and we know that today's announcement won't cause healing, but it is our prayer that it starts to bring some closure to this family. And to this family, we still stand with you. Our hearts and our prayers go out to you, but it is certainly our prayer and desire today that the healing process begins now that we have people held accountable for this heinous act. Thank you very much.
Before I introduce Sheriff Bouchard, I want to just acknowledge the prosecutor, McDonald, who's here. He's been a great partner. Our officers work extremely well together. We return phone calls, we talk, we conversate, and it's just been a wonderful partnership, and I'm just very pleased that she's here today to highlight that. Sheriff Bouchard?
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. Madam Prosecutor, I'm glad we're at the point. As you said, it's been a challenge to try to keep our team calm. When you lose somebody in the line of duty, you want to try to get things going, and it's important that it gets done right. And so while it did take a period of time and there was a lot of anxiety the longer it went, with our team, getting it done right is most important, and having the prosecutorial team ready to go hold these folks accountable. The loss of Brad, and the Chief knows the pain of losing somebody on your team in the line of duty. We've had that too many times, and you as well. And Brad was one of those folks that just kind of touched so many lives. He was a superstar in lots of ways. His lovely wife, Jackie, and they had 3 kids and another one on the way at the time he was murdered. So it leaves so many voids in not just the family, the friends, the community, but the agency. It's a gut punch when you lose somebody in the line of duty, especially somebody like Brad, who had worked in so many different things and knew so many people. He had been a motor officer. He had worked at one of our bigger substations in patrol, and then he was with our auto theft unit back in our special investigations section, so got to know all the specialty teams. And he was just one of those folks that was dedicated, you know, all hours of the day and night. If they got information, potentially a car that was stolen, suit up and off he'd go, you know, in the middle of the day or night or whatever it was. And that's the kind of person he was. And you're right, he was a hero. But, you know, people that put on a uniform every day are heroes. They may not pay the ultimate sacrifice, but they're willing to. And to me, that exemplifies a hero. So I'd like to thank the men and women of law enforcement that do that every day, regardless of the agency. They're not doing it for great pay, because it's not, and they're not doing it for good hours, because they're not. They do it because they want to make a difference, and that was Brad. That was the epitome of Brad, and that leaves a huge void. So while this, you know, a lot of people talk about healing. There can be no healing from a loss like this. But what you do is you learn to process it, and you figure out a way to take another step forward day after day. And this will be a processing step for the family and the officers, the deputies, the community, to begin that process of moving forward, knowing that, you know, the folks that did this intentionally will be held fully accountable. So I appreciate all the work that went into this by all the agencies that did it and the prosecutor's office to get us to this point. And as we all know, we see far too many tragedies in our line of duty. It will never bring that person back, but again, it brings that semblance of justice. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. So I'm going to take a few questions, but I just want to remind everybody again that this is ongoing. And I see our sheriff in the back, Raphael Washington. And I want to make sure that everybody understands there's going to be a lot of questions I can't answer, because, again, this is ongoing as it results to the CCE, the criminal enterprise. And so, but I'll do the best I can to answer your questions.
Prosecutor Worthy, can you talk to us a little bit about the timeline of this investigation? Obviously, Deputy Reckling was killed a few months ago. Did you guys face challenges when it came to the evidence and being able to render charges quicker or anything like that?
No, we didn't face any challenges there, because, like I said, when I was talking about Prosecutor McDonald, prosecutors' officers don't often collaborate. You would think that they do, but this is a gem right here. And we enjoy working with them, not on cases like this, but in terms of work that's done. Again, phone calls that return that is so important, work that they did for us with things that we had to take care of in Oakland County. The challenge in this case wasn't that. It was the body of work. As I talked about the intelligence analysts from both DPD and MSP, Detroit Police Department and Michigan State Police, the work that they did, they both happen to be female, I'm told, for 4 months, going through this evidence, distilling this evidence, and make sure it made sense to those of us that would be using it. Because when you work with analysts, it doesn't always make sense, and sometimes they have to explain it over and over again. But they distilled it to the point, I know Ronna and Matt would agree, that it was understandable and workable. So it was just the level and the volume of evidence. And also because this started off as a death of a peace officer, but it turned into a whole nother enterprise as a result.
Madam Prosecutor and Sheriff, they shoot? What evidence showed? They know that this was a law enforcement officer tailing them, or they would just shoot at anybody who was getting close?
Well, I can't get into their heads, but I can say that we will be parsing this down in court. It's not something I'm going to talk about now, especially since there could be other tentacles as well. Can't get into their heads, but we do know, we're confident with who we've charged and what we've charged them with.
Was it just the one suspect who discharged the weapon?
The only person charged with the murder of a peace officer is Mr. DeBose, yes.
But is he the only one who shot at the officer?
Yes.
Can we ask Sheriff Bouchard a question?
Sure.
Hi, Sheriff. I know you've been meeting with Deputy Spam, and you said, healing. There is no healing in this case. Walking them through the steps, getting closer to charges, what was their reaction when you finally told them? We got it.
Obviously anxious. When you have something like this happen, whether you're a police officer who's the victim or anyone, you want to see the person that did this horrific thing held account. And especially, when you've got a young mom of 3 kids and another on the way, the void that created for her, it exploded her life in so many ways, and she wants to make sure, rightfully and understandably so, that person is held to account. And, every day she wakes up thinking about that, and every day she goes to bed thinking about it because there's an empty spot next to her. So obviously each day that ticks off, it's more and more anxiety. So I think this is a great step to help in that process, but it's going to be a long process for her.
Chief White, in general, is a criminal enterprise recruiting teens and putting guns in teens' hands and sending them out to take cars by force. Is that kind of what we're looking at here?
Well, as the prosecutor indicated, there's a lot that's going to be coming out in court that we can't get into right now. But all of that, all those angles have been investigated, continue to be investigated, and there could be more charges coming.
Chief, while you're up there, appreciating we can't get into it and understanding that, when you use a term like complexity, are you referring to the initial identification of the suspects involved, or are you referring to the fact that you stumbled into a ring and it got a lot broader quickly? Can you give us more context on complexity if you're able?
Yeah, oftentimes, we want immediacy, and, we know that because, we get the calls, we get the outcries for quick. But, the old cliche, do you want it quick or do you want it right? And with this prosecutor, it's going to be right. And so you have to take the time to get the information. There's a lot of data. We're in a digital world now, and so when there's video and other evidence, it has to be carefully gone through. And those professionals have to carefully go through it. The analysts, both at Michigan State Police and in our own agency, have to put together this complex data and explain it and parse it out so it makes sense to the average person, that it makes sense in court. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's not just, a couple cops coming together and presenting a warrant to the prosecutor. I mean, you have to make sure in today's age that it has all those considerations in it. The videos and all of those things have to be reviewed, analyzed, and presented. So that's a complexity that I'm talking about.
And I'm glad the Chief mentioned that because it's complex in the point that we have to not only understand it ourselves, but we have judges and juries that we want to be able to have this done right too, and so that they will understand.
Was Deputy Reckling wearing body cameras, or is it undercover? That's not.
I don't think he was wearing body cameras. Anybody else?
We thank you for this, and the community leaders here, we need to ask you for your thoughts and opinions on this case of a lion being in a traffic stop with a gun under the seat.
I knew somebody was going to ask that, but
We didn't.
yeah. No, we're not going to focus on that today. We just received that warrant request, and so we have to look at it and treat that as we do any other case as far as looking at it and see if we can charge, and if we can charge, what we will charge. We just don't know at this point.
And Chief, like you're here, so we have to ask you, can you publicly say your reaction to this particular case with the lion and the gun?
We're looking at all aspects of the investigation. Did the officers act appropriately? We'll look at it. We'll be transparent about it like we always have. I made a statement yesterday about it. There are instances where the officers' actions would have lined up perfectly. There are some that didn't. But I don't know enough to really give you an informed comment yet until our internal affairs looks at it.
And because the internal affairs is looking at it, don't expect a very quick response from us, please.
Thank you.
Prosecutor Worthy,
Yes.
back on Reckling here. Is there any message that you feel charges send to the folks who are perpetrating these kinds of crimes and taking out police officers who are here to serve the community?
It's police officers and everybody else, and I'm sure that none of you expected that a lot of this would be based on a criminal enterprise. And so it's here. We're confident we can prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. It was extensive. It was violent. And it's something we had to focus on in this case. But if we stumbled upon, I don't want to use stumble because that's the wrong word to use. If we came across that and viewing evidence in any case, we would do the same thing. So, but it is extensive. And if any of you attend any court hearings, it'll begin to show itself out. There was a lot done here and a lot of evidence that we're going to be presenting here. And maybe more to come. Go ahead.
What you were saying, the people assembled right here, if you think I'm going to send people to Oakland County to take cars or Macomb, it's going to be easy. The message here is what?
It is not easy. And if we find out that there's something more going on than quote unquote just the theft of a car, because I've had my car stolen, probably some of you, it's the most kind of intervening thing that you get. It's very intrusive. And then we want to prosecute those cases. But again, this was a ring. This was something that touched a lot of cities and, like I said, 3 counties. And so if you're going to be involved in something like that, and if we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, we will charge it.
And the prosecutor went on to go, hey, we can go to Troy, and this is going to be easy.
I'm really proud of our law enforcement. Troy PD, we have an auto theft task force through the sheriff's office. I want to just say this. This is, when we heard about Deputy Reckling, everyone in my office was standing in line to try to do something. And it's not just important for his family, which we think about all the time, but all the other families of law enforcement out there who need to know that when their loved one puts their life on the line for all of us, for public safety, that there will be harsh consequences if something happens to them. So I'm standing here because we want to help in any way we can. It's not being prosecuted in Oakland County, but we're going to do everything we can to help Wayne County. And a message here should be law enforcement needs to be protected and lifted up, and we are with their families, and we want everyone to know that they will be dealt with in a very harsh way to the fullest extent of the law, because without our law enforcement partners, we are not safe. So that is my message.
Last one from me, if I may, Chief, Sheriff, or whoever might want to comment. Crime obviously has been down. We've talked a lot about it, trending downward. When we talk about auto theft, can you give us a little more context in regard to what you're seeing? If we get into an operation like this on the investigation of the death of Deputy Reckling and we see a ring, how prevalent are we seeing more of it, even though overall crime is down? How can you give us a little context, if possible? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm going to let them answer that.
So auto theft in Detroit is down. Again, we don't brag about numbers. We just use them as a basis to see if our strategy is working. It's down significantly in Detroit. We continue to work, as the prosecutor mentioned, with various task force. We have an internal working task force now that goes to multiple counties. They come in to our city and our county. We work with Sheriff Washington and his group on auto theft. So, there's a lot of moving parts with auto theft. We do see a trend towards younger people engaging. Social media is not helping us in that area. You've got these.
It is helping us.
Well, it helps us. It helps us find them, but it doesn't help the fact that it teaches them how quickly to do it. But we're very thankful that they continue to use it. So I don't want to stop them from doing that. But we're moving in the right direction. We're not ready to celebrate a victory just yet. And certainly we're seeing a lot of young people. The Kia Boy thing took off like crazy around the country. We saw that. The drifting and the drag racing, we're starting to see that some of those vehicles engaged in that are stolen, which is why they're so willing to damage them. But we're moving in the right direction, but much work remains to be done.
And I'm sure it's not lost on all of you that they were 18 years old and that they were involved in this way before they turned 18.
Is the thought there that they can't be prosecuted as adults and that's why they're being recruited?
I don't know what thought there is, but we are prosecuting them as adults. Well, for the carjacking, and they were adults when Deputy Reckling was killed. They were 18. Anything else? All right, thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
go back to the room. Yep.
We were just listening to Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy give an update on the investigation of Oakland County Deputy Bradley Reckling. Charges were announced for 3 18-year-olds in connection with the murder. Deputy Reckling was killed in June of this year while working undercover on a stolen vehicle investigation. Our Gino Vici was in the newsroom asking questions for you. We'll have the latest beginning at 4 on CBS News Detroit. We'll return after the break.
Let's get to that great un-Halloween-like weather.
That's true. Today, almost like summer-like. We're going close to 80 like yesterday. Did you like yesterday?
It was a nice surprise.
Yeah, we warmed to a high
I'll
of
take it.
79 degrees yesterday, which set a new record. Today, we're doing it all over again.